All right, hello. We are live. So I decided to go ahead and pop up over and do a little live stream about WWDC, about what I am excited about, what I expect from WWDC, and I encourage all of you who join my live stream to send me a message in the chat. What are you excited about WWDC? What you expect from WWDC? Your wish list and things like that. So let's talk about WWDC. Well, I think the obvious is Swift UI. Many developers express their wish for WWDC improvements, or not WWDC, Swift UI improvements. So Swift UI is absolutely great. I like that framework, but I think that we definitely need to get a parity with UIKit. Maybe not exact parity, but if you look at UIKit, it's definitely a lot more flexible framework. Yes, it is a little bit more tedious to do UI work with UIKit rather than with Swift UI, but certain features that you can implement pretty trivially with UIKit can be a lot of work with Swift UI, and I feel like the sooner Swift UI gets that sort of parity with UIKit, the faster it's going to be adopted by other developers. And I do see a lot of teams, and my team included, would like to jump on Swift UI and expand and develop more features with Swift UI. So yeah, Swift UI improvements, and I don't have any specific list for Swift UI. One of the obvious features that we need in Swift UI is the search bar and search view, similar to UI search view controller, because in UIKit you can implement UI search view controller rather trivially, versus like with Swift UI you have to do a lot of work yourself. You can either use UIKit view representable, or you can build out that element yourself. So, but more importantly, with Swift UI, I think for big companies, we do need to have a native framework for Swift UI for testing Swift UI views. Similarly, how we can test UI view controllers. Testing UI view controllers is not easy, and testing Swift UI views is not going to be easy either. But I think if we have a native way to test it in our unit test without getting third-party library or writing a lot of code ourselves, I think that would also expedite the adoption with Swift UI. Because, for example, for my company, we do take testing very seriously, and if something is not testable, it's probably not going to be like a good candidate for us to adopt, because we need a way to test it. So like for me, that would be like test improvements for Swift UI views and overall Swift UI improvements, because the less, if I go individually for every feature that I expect from Swift UI, that would be really, really long. Another expectation for me from WWDC that I would like them to implement is Combine. I think Combine is pretty good, and like overall, it's pretty solid framework. I would like to see again. I would like to see some parity, maybe not exact parity, but improvements. In, make it a little bit closer and up to speed with RX Swift. It would be really beneficial for the teams that use RX Swift right now to switch to Combine. And granted, like a lot of you can do pretty much the same thing with Combine what you can do with the RX Swift. There are like I think there are a couple of operators missing. I don't remember which ones, but you can do pretty much the same thing with Combine as you can do with RX Swift, and I think RX Swift is going to adapt Combine at some point. So, but what I want to see in Combine, I want to see a reactive or like Combine Coca, like similar to RX Coca, like where I can interact with UIKit components reactively, and for example, set up a trivial table view with RX Swift. It's really easy. With Combine, like you can react and you can set up the same table view in the same way, but you still have to do a lot of UIKit work, like to make it work. So, and again, it's not like must have for me, but like that would be really nice if Combine was adapted a little bit better with UIKit. And granted, like you can use Combine right now. You can use Combine with UIKit, and right now you can react to your UI component. So pretty much every view, every class in UIKit can be publisher, and you can react to it, and you can do certain things to it, and you can assign certain publisher to your UI elements. Yes, but it's not quite the same as RX Swift. So I would like to have a little bit more parity with that. When it comes to Combine and Swift UI, I think it's perfect. Like it works pretty well. Swift UI is pretty reactive itself. So yeah, but with UIKit, considering that many teams are going to continue to use UIKit, and considering the fact that there are a lot of code bases that were built with UIKit, I think adapting Combine for UIKit a little bit better to make it a little bit more trivial to use it with UIKit, I think that would be a good win for Combine. But we'll see. I don't really care about like hardware. Yeah, M1 Mac is amazing. I purchased my MacBook Pro with M1 as soon as it came out, and I have no regrets. I mean, it's a little bit small. I like big laptops, or I used to more so to big laptops. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna jump and buy another one. If Apple Silicon or M1 laptops with bigger screens would come out, I probably have to wait, because like there's no logical reason for me to like just jump ahead and buy it. So I see a couple of people join live stream. Tell me in the chat, what is your wish list for WWDC? What do you expect? What do you want to see? Do you have what is missing for you in Apple framework? And maybe that little thing that is missing for you might be implemented in this WWDC. So I would like to hear that. But yeah, um, for iPads and Xcode on iPad, it's not a feature that I want because I will be completely honest. I don't have iPad. I don't own iPad. It's not like I don't need to have iPad for my needs. I have my phone, so majority of the work, if it's not related to coding, I can do on my phone. So it's great. It's pretty powerful. All other work that I need to do, like coding or writing articles or working on my personal website, I usually do it on my laptop. So like I don't know if I need iPad, but I do see how it can be useful, especially for the people who are trying to learn to code and trying to figure out which platform to adapt. And um, we all know, if you are not in tech industry or you're not in an industry that you can make decent amount of money, buying um, MacBook Pro or even MacBook Air can be pretty expensive. So iPad might be a good starter option for people who would like to get into coding. And it's something that I hear from other iOS developers. So like I think that might be good. But for me personally, I don't really care because I don't use iPads. Um, Other features like AR kit and um, augmented reality and things like that. Again, it's not something that I work with a lot. Um, but again, like for me, my main two wishes for WWDC is improvements in the Swift UI, and definitely make it more testable, and um, um, adaption for Combine to make it more easier to use with UI kit. So that's kind of my two wishes. But I don't know what WWDC this year is going to bring us. So like I'm definitely excited. I was thinking the other day though, every year I get really excited about WWDC, and I definitely try to play around with new APIs, with new frameworks that came out. But in reality, unfortunately, if it's not your personal projects, or if it is not a brand new product that you're developing, you can't really use those new frameworks, those new APIs right immediately on, like, for your work, especially if you work on legacy code. So you normally would have to wait a few years, like I would say like a couple of years, maybe 3 years, like to finally use that API that WWDC announced. For example, with Swift UI, not a lot of companies jumped right into Swift UI when it was announced. So a couple of years now, we see a lot more companies adopting that. Um, Diffable data source, for example, and compositional view layout. Honestly, I haven't really seen. Diffable data source I've seen once. For work at the code bases that like I was working for work. Compositional view layout, I haven't seen that just of yet. So, and I think this is a big improvement for UI collection view, and it's definitely make it easier to create and build more complex UI design and UI. But again, the adoption of those APIs is rather slow. And Another interesting thing is certain things that that are announced by WWDC last year, for example, were easily and pretty fast adapted by developers. For example, widgets. And an interesting fact about widgets and how it was adapted, that it was driven by non developer community, if you wish. So there was, like, on the customer side, a lot of people would like to modify their iPhones, their home screens, and and some developers picked that up and created like Widgetsmith and mobile apps to modify those widgets. And I think it was really interesting. And another feature that was announced last year was app clips. And app clips, really, we haven't really seen a lot of app clips in the market. Not as much as we were seeing widgets. As soon as widgets came out, as soon as the new version of Xcode and Swift came out and those APIs were available out of beta, my company where I worked at a time, we already started a conversation how we can bring widgets to our SDKs, how we can bring widgets to our apps, and what, like, does it make sense to build it within a separate SDK or in the app. So that was really, really high interest for that. For app clips, I think there is a huge delay, and it wasn't adopted by community, and there's a reason for that. At least my theory is because it was last year, because it was really difficult for small businesses, and app clips are targeted. The main user for app clips, smaller businesses like restaurants or smaller stores that may not have resources to build a mobile app. So they might just utilize the other mobile apps, and they can implement like app clip for their business, and they could use that. But because a lot of smaller businesses were trying to figure out how to stay alive, how to stay afloat, I think that feature was overlooked. Because, like, even now, so now definitely it's a little bit better for the business. So, like, people are getting vaccinated, and in a lot of areas, restrictions are more relaxed and people are going out. So at the restaurants, at the local businesses, what I personally see is the QR code that will bring a website for you with the menu. It's not necessarily mobile friendly, not all the time. I usually have to zoom in and see like the menu, so like it's not like really smooth user experience. And the same thing with the payment. So certain restaurants will bring you like a check with QR code that you can just scan with your phone and pay right there and then. So I think it's really convenient, and I think if we had that feature with app clip, I think it might be a good candidate for that, because we like the menu or the payment system, we can build a lot better with mobile friendly frameworks, and like with Swift UI, for example, you can build like really simple UI like really fast, and implement your like menu or like payment system. But I think it hasn't been picked up yet, just because like businesses weren't quite there yet. They were just trying to figure out how to survive. And I don't know if app clips will actually um, ever um, um, ever take off that much. So we have a chat. That smart app clip with that smart app click with QR code. Um, yeah, like, but uh, yeah, like I agree with you. But I don't know how it would look with app clip though, and if and I don't know of any businesses that would benefit from it. So at least the businesses that I use on everyday basis, or when I like go out, or apps that I use on App Store. I haven't seen that. Like for example, like another use that could be good for app clips is um, the mobile games. I don't know if it is like I don't know if app clips would be powerful enough for certain mobile games. Like maybe like for simple games, but like again, I'm not quite sure. But like for games like that, I would like to have like app clip that I could use and try it out. And if I like the game, or if I like the app, I could just download the app later on and start using the app, because it's a little bit annoying when you're looking for an app, or you see a new app, and y- uh, you would like to play around with that, but in order to do that, you have to download the app, and then if you don't like it, like it's just on your phone, or you have to delete it. Okay, hello Eugene. What do you think of Swift UI future? What are you uh what are your expectations of it? Thank you for your question. So, I was just chatting a little bit about Swift UI at the beginning of my live stream, but like I can definitely reiterate on that. I do think that Swift UI might be the future, but in order for Swift UI to be the future of iOS development, I think it's missing a lot of parity with UIKit, because UIKit is really well done framework and it's really flexible. When it comes with Swift UI, you can do simple things really easy, really quickly, but certain things that you can do pretty easily in UIKit, you can't quite do with Swift UI as of yet. So I think Apple will invest, and like we don't know, I think I'm so sorry. I think based on last year, I think Apple is invested in Swift UI, and I think Apple will continue to improve Swift UI, and at some point, we will get either parity with UIKit, or ability to do things differently, and have a little bit more freedom and customization to our Swift UI views. All right, another comment from Lord Hokage. Like I can pronounce it correctly. I hope they open up the NFC writer reader, when you can use your iPhone to send information iPhone to phone. Yeah, that feature would be really cool though. Like, yeah. Um, but yeah, like that's kind of what I think about like Swift UI, and I think a lot of people, and I don't know why, and a lot of people like really hyped up about Swift UI, and I understand why, but I think combined might be also very can be very very handy for your networking, and okay, like you can use. I think combine is really beneficial when you have to call multiple endpoints and wait for each endpoint to complete, and at the end you will present some sort of result on the UI. So I think that would be a perfect candidate for combine. And I think I haven't seen anything new in combine last year, but I I think Apple should keep working, should investing in that, because if we were compare like combined with RX Swift still has a little bit more functionality and more capability to do certain things. I think they're pretty much the same, but again, because RX Swift was there for a long time, RX Swift has a lot of functionalities and a lot of options that we could use. So that's kind of where I stand with Swift UI. Definitely the future, and the sooner we have well functioning framework, the sooner more teams will adapt it, because like again, like certain trivial features like implement search view or search bar. If I go 100% with Swift UI, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of code to write. If I if I decide to implement like UI kit and wrap with my Swift UI view, the last time I did it, user experience wasn't as good though. So I had to rewrite that component myself in Swift UI to provide that smooth user experience. So maybe I did something wrong. And again, it was more so like my personal project rather than like production code. So I think or even like things like with modals, for example, you can do like you can implement certain functionality with modals easily with UIKit versus Swift UI. So I see new people are joining the live stream. Let me know in the chat, what is your wish list for WWDC? What do you expect? What are you excited about? And if you're not excited about anything and you're just kind of curious what Apple is going to release, that's okay too. Because I was like, before the live stream, I was actually kind of sitting there and contemplating, like, what am I really excited about Swift UI and WWDC, sorry. And the only thing that I could honestly think of is improvements with Swift UI. I am curious about certain things with UIKit. For example, I'm very curious if Apple is going to eventually deprecate table view, which I don't know, like some of the iOS developers say that like, oh, and at some point it's going to be deprecated. I personally don't see the reason why. What about Flutter? I'm a beginner iOS developer and see many colleagues converting to Flutter and leaving the native community. Well, I wouldn't say that. A lot of native developers converting to Flutter. I think every framework, every tool is good for the job that it is intended to do. So I haven't tried Flutter like I've seen tutorials with Flutter and what Flutter could do, and it's definitely interesting. I definitely want to try it out, but I think it depends on like what your app is supposed to do. If, for example, if your app is like if your company like would like to present like a smooth app experience for your product. For example, you are a large retail store like in the US, or like you or you do you provide certain services through your app. I think it makes sense to go native, because native will always provide you a smoother experience and better experience versus like third-party framework, so including Flutter. So if the purpose of your app is to redirect your user to your product somewhere else, so your app is not a part of your product, then maybe third-party framework would be appropriate. If it is a small app and it's that the app is doing relatively easy thing, then cross-platform would be also like okay to use. Like, and see, like I'm a native developer and I'm very biased. Because like I like the experience as a developer from working with native iOS ecosystem. I like it a lot, and if I were to develop an Android app or working on an Android app, even if I were the only developer on the team, I would probably write that feature separately, and write that feature natively for Android as well, because I'm kind of curious about Android framework. And yeah, but speaking of Android, like I don't want to say that I watched Google I/O conference, but like I definitely looked into certain features that were introduced to Jetpack Compose, which is very similar framework to Swift UI, and other features that Android introduced. And one thing that I like, sorta like, about Android, that they provide backward compatibility, that it is compatible with other versions. Apple doesn't do that. I understand why Apple doesn't provide backwards compatibility, because it will introduce bugs into the system eventually. At some point it will introduce bugs, and when I work closely with my Android developers, because of the backwards compatibility, there were certain issues that we were trying to fight. So it kind of like it's nice to have, but like we definitely might see the weirdness. And with certain features like Swift UI, for example, I would like it to like if it was backwards compatible, I think the adoption rate would be a little bit faster. But again, Apple doesn't really provide backwards compatibility, not always. If they're developing new thing, it's just new thing. It's like moving forward, which makes sense to me. But yeah, like this is kind of what I think about Flutter and like third-party frameworks. I don't. Again, like I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that iOS developers converting to Flutter. And a lot of iOS developers are playing with Flutter because it's fun. And I would definitely develop some, like, I want to develop certain personal projects with Flutter, but it doesn't mean that I will go and start Flutter development necessarily. I mean, if my next opportunity, when the time is right, which is not right now, and the opportunity is right at that moment, and that opportunity is Flutter, I would probably take it if I was offered. Because, like, again, like, I'm a super curious person and I would like to try it out. But consciously just switch to Flutter because it's better for one or the other reason, like, no. And Flutter is a new framework. I think Flutter is a new framework, and if I were to decide which framework to use, like, if if I were to build like a mobile app with like a third-party framework that I need to build at the same time for iOS and Android, I would probably go with React Native because React Native has been around for a little bit longer, even though Flutter is a little bit more fun. So I would try Flutter for fun. I will go React Native for like more serious projects if I absolutely had to. If the native development was not an option, or I would have to really develop features at the same time really, really fast for both platforms. But ideally, native development is fun, and native development is the way to go for me. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions, if you have any other ideas or thoughts about WWDC. Um, um, the so far the other like when oh, we haven't talked about async await with the Swift. Like where I live, Ukraine, many guys in the community start getting interested in and saying that many features that native systems is now offering in Flutter. Yeah, I agree with you. Flutter is getting up to speed, and Flutter, um, yeah, just an opinion. Yeah, Flutter is getting up to speed for sure, and I think Flutter has a lot of potential, and if Flutter will keep going at the rate it is going, it can at some point be a like a good competitor for React Native. So regarding UI Kit, in my humble opinion, I think it's too hard for Apple to deprecate UI Kit since the most app are built using it. Yeah, I don't think that UI Kit will be ever deprecated. It's like Objective-C. Objective-C is still alive and well, and there are a lot of teams at Apple that are using Objective-C on an everyday basis. There are a lot of companies that are hiring iOS developers for to write an app in Objective-C. For example, a couple of years ago, I interviewed with Snap, and the team that I interviewed for, they use Objective-C. Also, a couple of years ago, I interviewed with LinkedIn, and the team that interviewed me used Objective-C. So, Objective-C is really old framework, but a lot of people are still using that, not framework, the language. It's a really old language, but a lot of teams at Apple and other companies are still using it. Like when I was working at T-Mobile, there was a lot of Objective-C code there. Like, and I think here recently they started experimenting and start writing Swift code. So UIKit, I don't think it's going to be deprecated. I don't think it should be deprecated because it's a great framework. I like UIKit. I can build UI faster with Swift UI if it is nothing complicated. I can do a lot of interesting things with UI with Swift UI faster, but I still like UIKit because certain things that I can do easily, like with UIKit, I can do with with Swift UI. Do I want to switch to 100% writing Swift UI code? Possibly yes, but the reality is like, as of right now, I'm working on the app that is written in UIKit, and I don't see the need for us to move to Swift UI really for the views that we have. For certain improvements, maybe if we want to rewrite certain screens, maybe, but go full on speed on Swift UI like as we did with Swift. I don't see I don't see the reason to. As a new app, I see a lot of startups are contemplating about UIKit or Swift UI, and a lot of startups using Swift UI 100% or more or less 100%. I think it's a good use for that, but again, like, I agree with you. Like, UIKit, like, I don't think it's going to be deprecated. I'm curious though if table view is going to be deprecated, because, and don't quote me on that. As far as I know, when it comes to like collection view, Android has I think it is recycling or reusable view, and you can just configure it as a grid or as a table view, but it's one component that they use. And I think Apple is trying to do similar thing, considering that last year they released table view cell for collection view with composition of view layout. So I think that might happen. But I'm kind of curious. I'm just kind of curious to see where the table view is going to land. And if you were to ask me, I don't think that table view should really be deprecated, because it's a simple component to implement, even with UIKit. It's simple component to implement, and it's simple component to manage. UI collection view is a lot more complex, and UI collection view requires a lot more maintenance, my humble opinion. So if I need to build something now, if I had to build something that looks like a bunch of rows like that, I would probably go with table view for now, not with UI collection view, even though I like UI collection view because it is very flexible and you can do a lot of things with that. But yeah, it's kind of what I think. It's kind of what I think. I have a question for people in the chat. How do you keep up with WWDC? Like, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of videos. It's a lot. Do you watch all the videos, which is I think it's kind of impossible, or do you watch videos that are relevant to you, or do you watch other creators talking about certain frameworks? Let me know in the chat what how do you process all of that, because it's a lot. And last year was a lot. I think I wanted to do I wanted to record certain videos, and I wanted to record a lot of videos, but like I just didn't have time to like really watch and process all of the APIs that like were released. I think I just slightly touch on new collection view and like the grid view layout with Swift UI, but I couldn't really just process all of that. I'll see the keynotes and focus on Swift UI part. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think for me, like, I will definitely focus on Swift UI, I will focus on XCT framework and XCUI framework. I'm very curious about improvements in testing because we do a lot of testing at my company, and I mean a lot. And I'm just gonna see if XCT test has anything better to offer that like we use right now, and XCY test, especially XCY test, because we do write a lot of XCY code for certain tests. So far, not interested in chips or macOS new releases. Yeah, like I don't think that I'm very much interested in chips too. Like M1 is pretty cool. I see, like, and one thing that I'm kinda struggling with. My stream is very noisy. It's one of the things that I'm struggling with when I'm doing live stream. Like if I live streaming in the middle of the day, it's gonna be noisy. But anyway, one thing that I'm kind of struggling with is iMac. I like iMacs that are released, but I need them bigger. And again, another it's kind of the same conclusion that like I have about M1 MacBook Pro laptops. If they release bigger laptops, like I already have one, like I don't need another one. And I'm afraid if I buy iMac for myself, either my laptop is going to just stay there and not being used, or my iMac is going to just stay there and not being used. I don't know. Like I'm let me put it this way. If they release bigger iMacs, I will be really tempted to buy it. So, but like so far the iMacs that they released here recently, I don't think I'm gonna buy one. It's too small, and I already have like one small laptop, so it's a little bit bigger than my laptop, but like I don't know, maybe there is a way to work together to use that iMac as my second monitor. So I would probably use that, but I don't know, we shall see. So for people who are joining, we're chatting about WWDC. Let me know in the chat what you're excited about. What do you expect from WWDC? A lot of people are excited about Swift UI. I'm excited about Swift UI, but like I'm also curious about like other frameworks like XCT test. Oh yeah, and I think I wanted to talk about concurrency, async await with like when the what is going to be released in Swift. I think really async await is huge. And here recently, I was chatting with someone on Twitter, and that person said like that basically async await is going to kind of replace combine. And in my opinion, it is not accurate assessment. I don't think that language feature can replace the framework. But I do think that with async await, a lot of like concurrency code is going to be very easy to deal with. And I'm kind of curious if async await will impact combine in any way, because I totally can see how async await can be an amazing supplement with functional and reactive programming. Because think about it, functional and reactive programming, or function like reactive framework, one of the reasons people use it like to handle asynchronous operations. For example, futures Like they are excellent for handling asynchronous operations. So that's really good. And I think with Swift having async await, it's gonna make using combine a little bit easier, or not easier, because like it's functional and reactive programming. It's like it takes a while to like understand the concept, but I think async awake can make it a little bit more efficient. And the reason why I don't like went back to my conversation on Twitter that like async awake can replace combine. Um, I think there is RX JavaScript or something like that, or RX Java, and you other languages have async await, and you can use async await, especially with JavaScript. And JavaScript is still using reactive frameworks, so even though they have async await, they still use reactive frameworks. So I am curious about that presentation on WWDC on the Swift portion. So yeah, I think it's huge, and I think for me it's like finally, because other languages have it and Swift doesn't, which kind of like didn't make a lot of sense for me. And we do have a lot of concurrency code that we have to write for our mobile apps, and I think it's time. I think it's time, and like I think it's a great improvement to the language. Apologies for the silly question. If we now have async await built in Swift, why combine then? It's not a silly question. Well, I need to think about it. So, a combine is a framework that can like take asynchronous, like it's a reactive framework that not only can handle asynchronous operations, but also you can essentially push data like how do like I'm trying to memorize. I trying to remember how Donny Walls put it. He put it so beautifully on my tweets. I have to find it, but essentially, combine and async await, they do two separate jobs. Async await async await, it's rather synchronizing values over time, and combine, it gives you the opportunity to react on certain changes. I mean, can you not use combine and just use async await for your code? Absolutely yes, you can. And even now, like, you don't have to write reactive code to make your application more reactive, kinda, or you can use like RX Swift for that, and which RX Swift works perfectly fine, if you were to ask me. But the reactive part of that, I don't think that async await will substitute the reactive part. The substitute, like, where we can push values upstream as easily as we can do it with combine. And again, like, I think Donny Walls, like, I will try, like, if you follow me on Twitter, I will try to find that tweet from Donny Walls. I will do my best and retweet it, or like, yeah, and like, and you're gonna see it. But yeah, that's kind of why, like it's just two separate things. Like, one is the language feature and another is a framework. So, it's like 54 minutes. It's almost an hour since we were live. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any thoughts about WWDC. Otherwise, we can probably wrap it up. And for the next week, for WWDC, last year I took a couple of days off. I think I took the first day off, just to fully focus on WWDC. This year I'm not doing that. Like, I have to work, but I will try to go live either like after the keynote session, or after work, just give my reaction on what was announced, what is particularly important to me, what I think about those changes, and as new APIs are announced, as new changes are announced, I either gonna do live stream, or I will try to record a quick video where I play around with the framework. It's gonna be either or. But yeah, like, you're gonna see a lot of me on. Hopefully, you're gonna see a lot of me on next year, next week on my channel. I wanted to do something like that last year, but I was so overwhelmed and busy with like work and WWDC, so I just didn't have enough time and honestly energy to like dive really deep into like certain things that were announced. But this year I will try to stay on top of that. On top of it, I will try to, if not record like a separate tutorial, maybe hop on the live stream and see, and just make a reaction video or play around with new APIs that are announced, and we can all chat about it. So, if you don't have any questions or more questions or thoughts, like, I really enjoyed hanging out with all of you. Thank you so much. You really made my live stream more interesting. I like when people come on, join my live stream and exchange ideas on the chat. I really appreciate it. It makes chat more alive. It makes chat more interesting. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you, Eugene. Your tutorials are always helpful when I'm stuck on coding. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really glad that my tutorials are helpful. Alright, thank you so much. I will see you next week. Happy WWDC. And I think it's important to remind ourselves, kind of to pace ourselves. And the WWDC, those APIs will be there. And there's always time to kind of slow down and dive into APIs that you need, that are important to you. Thank you so much. I said goodbye like 5 times already. I will see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.